that was silly, ridiculous, a waste of time. They didn't want. That's why they were so successful. That's why they got away.
Made a living in very dangerous.
This is really an integrated blue society.
Dianne Andrews in black and white.
Hello, this is Fuji Totes. I'm making a little video for you to see how the pillow works with the doggy in it. I have driven all the way to Las Vegas, Nevada, and taken Fuji and my other dog, my Multiple, with me with their meds, their leashes, their water cup, and whatever. And one pack, a couple of packs of food are in the bottom of this. Even with all that in the bottom, he can still lay here and feel nothing. You see him sitting down on it. He can still do that with all the things in there.
Welcome to Dianne Andrews in black and white. Thank you for joining me today. We've been doing this over 9 years, and it still feels fresh every time I do it. I love to bring you all the news that needs to be told, and told in a true fashion. I've done shows from human trafficking. I just did that with Father Behe out at Metanoia about 2 weeks ago, and it is amazing. I'm sure at the Super Bowl, we had so many women and men being trafficked, because that is the #1 corridor in the country, is between Houston, Texas, and New Orleans, Louisiana. And the Super Bowl is the #1 event. So that had to be a kind of horrible place. People had a lot of great fun, and we want to give a shout out to Southern University's band. Everybody knows about Fuji Toast. Fuji's running around here today. I think he's got ADHD today. And you know, he gets in here and we carry him around. But now we have it for humans too. You'll see a picture. In fact, Dr. Mays' grandbaby is on one of the pillows. And I just took pillows and donated to Emerge Autistic Center out last week with Ashley McDermott out there. Hey, Ashley. So, but we have them in every color. We've got Kansas City back there. Sorry, Kansas City fans. And we also have the Eagles. We have green. We have 27 colors in Fuji's totes. But I wanted to give a shout out. The Human Jukebox showed up and they showed out. They did a wonderful job. And another thing Southern University has this month, they were named the #1 nursing program in the country by nurses.com. No, it's nurses.org. And I want to say hello to my friend Leah Collins. How you doing, Leah, out there? So, but let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. I was involved somewhat. I did some shows with Darryl Glasper, and we basically did them on our present mayor, Mayor Sid Edwards. And I also did some other things where we talked about him and talked about the kinds of things as he said he was going to do, and he's already started. People may not know this, but he has a second satellite office right now in North Baton Rouge, already keeping the promises. And he has a transition team. I am a member of it, and we're it's quite a few people, 30, 40 people, I guess, where we're trying to see what things we can make better. And I used to do process reengineering for IBM, and that's the main thing you want to do. Get people together, find out what's wrong, and then go try to fix it. You have to involve the users in anything that you're doing. So I'm going to interview his campaign manager, who helped him get here, and let's see what strategies he used. He is also now his executive director, and he's a founder of MRB Consulting. He's a political strategist. He worked in the legislature as a staffer. So come on back and let's see what's going on with our new mayor. Come on back to Dianne Andrews in black and white. Donald Trump, he was only really had the ability to change the outcomes for minorities and everybody. Lowest unemployment ever under those 3.5 years, 3.5% for the nation, the lowest in 50 years. And for blacks, Latinos, women, lowest unemployment ever under Donald Trump the first 3.5 years, correct?
Right. You know, you bring up a good point. I tweeted something out the other day that under President Trump, he used to say promises made, promises kept.
When we lost 20% of the utilities, energy, how did you supply? How did you make sure we didn't lose more? More of the cattle, more of the eggs, more of the everything.
We have custom-made units, and they are mobile pet evacuation trailers that we got from the federal government. Gave us these trailers that came out of the food service.
We're letting 2 million people have come over here in a year across the border illegally. I don't
We have a huge
understand. I don't
problem
think
at the
more
border.
people know. I don't think most people know how many are really
Right.
coming, because the mainstream media, of course, CNN is getting their just due right now, right? With everybody's having to leave because of sexual problems or this problem or another problem.
We have a couple of lawsuits pending about this administration's immigration policy. If they are legally here or illegally here, but even if they are legally here, if they commit a crime and they're convicted of a crime of violence, then they are immediately deportable.
The UN just said, United Nations, worst border in the history of the world is our border. The American, well, it's borderless.
Yes.
We have no border. Who does that?
We have Republicans who are willing to bend. We watch 12 million people, more probably, that I've come across.
That's right.
They're not making that argument. They're attacking Donald Trump.
What do you think would have happened if they had had an active doctor instead of just Dr. Fauci on Operation Warp Speed? Someone who really knew what was going on out there in the field.
When former President Trump contracted COVID-19, now remember, Trump was bold. President Trump received sequential multi-drug therapy, which is now the cornerstone of our protocols that we use, and the doctor featured in that was Dr. Conley.
We're going to hear why this man with a wife and 2 children who he had to leave behind because they threatened to kill him. He's going to tell us the true life of living in Cuba.
El momento que a mí me amenazan de muerte fue a razón de mis opiniones en contra de una falsa reforma a la Constitución de Cuba.
When he was put in jail, it was because he was against his beliefs.
I didn't know what fracking really was until I was doing some of the shows with Eric Lane and Matt Coday.
I'm against the whole war against oil and gas.
Right.
I think that the market, when we move to something better than oil and gas,
right,
then we'll spend that
and it's
money
sure
for
not the
whatever
EV.
that is.
Well, I won't be that comfortable today, but as you see, the co-host is taking up half the chair. Fuji's sitting back here, and he won't get on his pillow today. With me is the man that I mentioned, who's done a lot of things in his short lifetime, which is a great thing. He's also online Nicholls State, started at LSU, and working on a political science degree. Mason Bates, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, you're welcome. We've been trying to do this for a little bit.
We have.
How wonderful is it to work for a man that keeps his promises, that's known as an empowerer and a uniter? Tell me about.
You know, I wouldn't want to do anything else, but it is something that is undescribable as far as the ability to come to work every day and work for somebody who, you know, if he told you something on Monday, on Wednesday it will be true. You mentioned in your opening monologue that he has opened the North Baton Rouge satellite office. That was one of the first things we did in the new administration, but also there's a South Baton Rouge satellite office that's going to be getting ready to be opened here in the next few weeks at the McKinley Alumni Center. So not only are we expanding services in the north part of the parish, but we're also going to the south part of the parish,
some of the underserved communities is what I read he's going into.
That's right.
You all are going into.
Yeah.
It is just amazing. You take a man, though, if you're a coach, you build a team. You have to build it, right, to put all the elements together to form leaders and people who also will follow what the coach has to say. And that's probably, he won 200 games, I think I read, in high school, right?
Yeah, 207, I think. When
That's
it was
a
all
big
said and done.
number.
Yeah.
And he went to Redemptorist, and then he went back and coached there for a while, right?
That's right.
But he came here from a Stroomer. I think because of that, he was known also already in our minority community, in the black community. And he won 54% of the vote, which was kind of surprising to you know, some of the Democrats here and some of the people. But one thing I remembered he said at his watch party when he won, he said Sharon did lifetime of dedication of service. And we have to thank her for that. And just because you change, we want to change some things, doesn't mean everything was wrong.
That's right.
So he's a very humble man, and that's so true. In fact, I interviewed Mayor Broome, probably one of her last interviews at the Renaissance Day at a party for her, right before the inauguration, or was it right after? During that time.
Just before, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a going away party.
And they asked me to come and interview her, and I did. And thanked her for what she did. I really appreciated COVID.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get locked down like New Orleans did.
Right.
Which was a really great thing. So how did you get into politics? You're from Shreveport. Are your parents in it, or?
No, neither of my parents are in it. They both work, regular private sector jobs. But I had a real interest in it growing up. Probably around 2012, 2013. They had the Tea Party movement.
Yes.
That had started.
Ted Cruz.
Yes, and so I was an only child. My parents were divorced, so I was at home a lot.
How
alone.
old were you? If you want to say, you don't have to say.
If I can think, let's see. I'd have been 8 or 9, I think.
Yeah,
around
8 or 9.
8 or 9 at that time. Yeah, I used to not tell people my age, but then it was in the New York Times, so
yeah.
You kind of have to make it public. And I just started I started watching the news, and seeing that, and that's kind of how I first started getting involved. And then, as opportunities kind of opened up for me to volunteer on campaigns as a young person, but opportunities were afforded to me that I was able to see the inner workings of how campaigns and politics really work. See that when the lights are turned off and they go behind those closed doors, everyone's really friends, and that was a really shocking thing for me to see, because
you mean the opposite parties.
That's right.
Yeah,
if you watch the news, they're bitter enemies, but that's really not true.
Right.
And so those types of opportunities led into me being able to see those things very clearly at a young age and get experience just from sitting in the room.
Do you think, though, when you get up to the level these days with a Nancy Pelosi and a Donald Trump in the room, I don't think they're friends, right?
No,
People
I don't think they're
level.
friends, no. Probably more cordial
AOC.
than yeah, I don't know if they're in the same room.
Right, they won't even be in the same room, which is sad, because, a lot of things that Donald Trump talked about, that he did, keeps his word. And, they took away the remain in Mexico, then we get skyrocketing illegal aliens coming to this country. They're flying them over here in a program called Humanitarian Parole Program, and now Donald Trump flying them back. So a lot of the remain in Mexico, he stopped so many good things that were helping the country.
That's right.
Why do you think that some people seem to want to hurt the country? Mason, what's your perspective being in politics?
I don't know. Everyone has a different background that kind of informs the way they make decisions. The way I see it in the modern Democrat Party today, on the national level, on the local level, things are different in a lot of places, but on the national level, I think what you're seeing is a completely different ideology taking over. I think this is really socialism, which will eventually lead to communism.
Right.
And so I don't know if it's necessarily, they think flying illegals in by the 300s of thousands, over 300,000 being flown in, isn't necessarily a good idea, as much as I think they think if we bring these new people in who are not involved in American society, have no idea what the norms are supposed to be, they may be okay with a 6'2", 250-pound woman using the restroom with normal women,
Right.
And I think it's more about changing society as a whole, versus maybe these specific ideas.
Completely agreed with you.
Because I think if you identify the ideas by themselves, no one can think that's normal.
Even if you look at Kamala Harris, which I'm an AKA, she's an AKA, same sorority, but people don't know this. She grew up in Montreal, Canada.
Yeah.
That's where, and they didn't focus on that. Her formative years were in Canada. Her father is an economic professor. He was. He's still living, doesn't talk to her, doesn't agree with everything, but he is a communist. He's a Marxist, which is a communist. And her mother was a socialist. So she grew up in that environment, and she grew up in Canada, which is kind of socialist also. And she spent from, I think, 8 years old to 18 when she came back and went to Howard. That's 10 years.
That's 10 years.
That's your formative years of your life. And the rest of it was in La La Land. I guess before that, 7 years out in California, which is already communist too. So, and when she talked about unearned tax credits, I hope people know what that meant. That's what happened to Venezuela 25 years ago. Venezuela was like the 4th richest nation. They still have the #1 oil reserves in the world under the ground, and people eating out of trash cans. In fact, a lot of the people we flew over were from their prisons. Tren de Agua is from Venezuela, from Caracas and those areas. So I definitely see, and I talk about it all the time on my show, I've been a Trump person for 10 years. I lost a lot of friends and family, and a lot of people still don't see the good and the bad, or the difference in what was done in the last 4 years to this country. When we're taking the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City at $400 a night, which is owned by a Pakistani that's making, and they give them like $100 a day to eat, and they throw it in the trash can. I don't know if you saw that special they did on that.
Yeah, I did.
Where they were throwing it away, and they were buying these little hot burners to cook tortillas. And that's okay if you want to cook tortillas. Then let's give them $10 a day. Let's not give them anything.
That's right.
We got people in North Carolina starving and freezing right now that they did nothing about.
That's right.
So we've got people, USDA, USAID. Tell me, do you want to talk more about this kind of stuff, or do you want to talk more about...
We can do both.
Yeah,
I think what you're seeing with USAID is really shocking. Some of the things that we're spending millions of dollars on.
$50 million for condoms.
That's right. In Gaza.
In another country.
In Gaza. I mean, a war zone.
Right.
I mean, is this really
They said they used them to make those blow-up bombs that they put in some kind of way. They stretch them out.
I think they're very resourceful in making. They're pretty resourceful in finding ways to kill Americans
and themselves.
And themselves in the process. But I think what, you know, some people will say, especially on the left, oh well, you know, the budget, the deficit's, you know, 36 trillion. That's only, you know, 50 million. Well, 50 million a bunch of times. That's a lot of money. Well, and if we don't care about the 50 million, that's how you get to that 36 trillion.
That's right.
Is about, oh, that's just 50 million. Let's just throw it out the window.
That's insane.
And that's what they were doing. There's some places maybe need some humanitarian aid, yes.
Yes.
But
make it humanitarian aid.
Humanitarian aid, food, water. You know, we don't necessarily want people starving, but let's also look back home. There are people, we're sitting in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. There's only 50 capital cities, 49 capital cities like ours, you know, if you exclude Alaska, that is in the mainland United States, and we have people starving.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
When I was young, kids weren't starving.
That's right.
20% of kids in this country, now up to 25%, go to bed hungry. I did a show with a child who was living in his car before and went to bed hungry every night. So why can't we, and I don't know why people have a problem with make America great again, make us first, and then let's help everybody. I've always thought that George Soros' Open Society was really a way that to funnel money. Like Ukraine right now is talking about we've given them what $200 billion, and they don't know where $75 billion went. How can you not know where it went? I think it's funneled back in. A friend of mine does a podcast out of New Orleans, and she's from Guatemala. Her relatives, or she grew up in New Orleans, but she does a podcast down there, and she was telling me that when she went down there, she talked to some of the people in the administration, and they said, we can't believe you elected Joe Biden. Joe Biden was Obama's wingman. He would come down, if they gave us $100 million, they took 25 to 50 million back. So that's the way it seems like they were funding Act Blue, was to send the money back through these organizations, George Soros. I mean, he's very rich, but is he really spending billions and billions and billions every month, every year? You know, he just bought 200 radio stations in America.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and he got them through the FCC within 2 weeks, right before Biden got out of
Of course they did.
Of course.
You know.
And people want to say that Doge is not, not legal. But everybody you hire is a consultant. He's acting as, he's paid $1, so he's paid. And I like rich people doing things.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to steal. He doesn't need the money.
That's right.
And I mean, they've sent, I'm so happy Trump has sent back 7,000 illegals. When Colombia said they weren't going to take them the next day, of course, they took them when Trump got through with them. And we're putting back the Remain in Mexico program on the border. In fact, they're having to close down some of those shelters they built for the illegals. And I call them illegal until you change the law up in the Congress. They're illegal.
That's right.
That's what the law says.
They're not migrants. They're illegal aliens.
That's right.
And there's a legal process. I think we all agree that we need immigration to an extent.
Yeah.
But who do we want in America? Do we want the PhD student from Mexico, or do we want the member of Pablo Escobar's gang.
That's right.
You know, I mean, because I can tell you which one Mexico would rather send to us.
That's
and
right.
It's certainly
And that's
not
what they
the
were
PhD
doing,
student.
right?
And that, Mexico has plenty of room to take these people because they can put them back in their jails.
Right.
And so can every other country in Central and South America, because that's what they were doing. They were emptying out their jails,
That's right.
emptying out their mental institutions, and they were flooding them here on Greyhound buses.
That's
you
and
know,
planes.
and
The
plane,
HTP,
you
they
could
flew
fly.
them.
You could fly
Yeah.
them in.
Yeah.
You could get your Visa on your cell phone.
App. They had an app for it. That's right.
You know, back when the iPhone came out, what was the saying? There's an app for that.
That's
well, they
right.
had an app for that.
That's right.
And
They
so
created an app.
They created an app, and you know, you saw when they turned that off. You know,
Right.
how that went.
Right.
And look, I think there are probably a lot of good people who have maybe come into this country and they didn't do it the legal way with good intentions. However, I think there's a lot more bad people
I agree.
that have come in.
I was in home health. I had 150 employees. I had several home health agencies, and I had 10 Indians who came over here legally. They were sponsored by Indian doctors, and they worked for me. And the day they got their citizenship, they have to take a test. They go down, they're sworn in, it's a ceremony. They were so happy and elated. And they, like one of them was a teacher before, you know, as you said, and I did a show with a guy from Cuba. He was in the Remain in Mexico program with Donald Trump. And when he had it, it's back now. He's putting the Remain in Mexico back where Biden took it away, which is why Trump's numbers were the lowest in the last 60 years for illegal immigration. But Remain in Mexico was a great tool. This guy, he was over there 2 years because they checked out whether he was really seeking asylum. That's the only reason you're supposed to come in here over the border.
That's
is
right.
seeking asylum.
Through a legal point of entry as well.
That's right, and a legal point of entry. But you're also supposed to stop at the first country you get to.
Yeah.
And so that's Mexico most of the time, or someplace else down in Central
That's
America.
right.
But it took him months to get here because they were trying to kill him. He was a freedom fighter in Cuba. And he said exactly what we're talking about now. He sees America going toward socialism, then you go to communism, because Cuba now is a communist country.
Yeah, actually some of the most conservative members of our society are Cubans.
Very.
And some people from Venezuela as well. If they were fortunate enough to make it out, they've seen what's happened.
That's right.
And you know, back to what we were saying on immigration, you know, you had the Civil Rights Acts in the 1960s,
Right.
which were great
Yes.
for and things that they finally fulfilled promises that were made in the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution.
Right.
However, most people don't know that there's a third Civil Rights Act, and that's the Civil Rights Act of 1970, passed by Senator Kennedy,
Right.
not Senator Kennedy of Louisiana.
No. Edward Kennedy.
It's Edward Kennedy, and he wanted to have a civil rights bill too, as this story is told. But this wasn't civil rights for African Americans
No.
or Hispanics or anything like. This was civil rights for immigrants, and so it
Right.
entitled immigrants that when they came to the United States, post probably 1974 is when it really became implemented. They were entitled to benefits, Social Security,
Right.
Medicare, Medicaid, whatever we have to do to prop you up to make you successful. That's what we'll do. Versus if you go to pre-1974 immigration in the United States, a large majority of the people actually went back to their
That's right.
homeland.
Like they're going back now. Some of them are going back on their own now.
Because they couldn't make it. Because
That's
there was
right.
no social safety net
Right.
that's been propped up for all of these other people by American citizens. And until we get to the point where we can have our United States military, once they're out, not sleeping on streets,
That's
then we
right.
can consider having those
That's
types
right.
of programs.
I hate what's going on with the veterans. Every
But
time
we
I
can't
see a
even
veteran.
keep our own veterans
That's right. It's terrible.
off the streets.
Trump
So why
did-
should we go keep someone's criminals off the streets?
But you know, Trump did the Veterans Act when he was
That's
in.
right.
He fired 7,000 veteran employees who were. I did some shows with Shreveport.
Yeah, Shreveport.
Hospital's up there, a social worker.
Yeah.
With the veteran hospital
Yeah.
up there. He came down here. He was a scheduler, but he was also a veteran. And he was saying they were backing the schedules up, making sure these people couldn't get. They delayed scheduling. And I went to the Whistleblowers Conference, which I go a lot, and we film there at the Whistleblowers in D.C. And they spoke on that. And that Trump did something called the Veterans Affairs Act, that if you need to go to the hospital and the VA is crowded, you can go to the lake.
That's right.
And we pay the lake.
That's right.
He also did something right to try. I interviewed Donna Brett at home before she
Yeah.
died, and at the station before she passed down there. I don't know if she did do it, but when she had ALS, she was talking about there were some experimental drugs. I mean, when you're dying, you will try
You will try
anything And what's wrong with right to try? But all these things we're talking about, this Biden-Harris got rid of.
That's right.
They haven't, but they're all coming back.
Yeah.
Trump, just like Sid Edwards said, he's ordained by God. I really believe that, and I believe Trump is too. And I think Trump knows that now. He always had the policies right, but his demeanor wasn't right. Now I won't say right, but it was different than it is today. He talks about ending Ukraine, about the deaths there, the cartilage, the Russian people dying, everybody dying, too many people dying.
That's
but they say he was always a very, very nice man and a real humanitarian. But sometime, I guess, coming from that rough and tough construction world, but now he seems very much laid back, nothing, sliding off his back.
Yeah,
now.
and I think he's got a much better staff now.
Yeah.
I think the staff when he came in 2017 was good.
Yeah.
A lot of good people, but they didn't work very well together. You had the Steve Bannons of the world running around doing certain things, and then you had the Reince Prievises of the world.
Right.
So you had that kind of friction between those two groups.
And you had some people that didn't like Trump.
That's right.
What was that guy from Texaco, the president of Texaco?
Rex Tillerson.
Yeah, I don't think he cared for Trump.
Yeah, no, he didn't make it too long either.
And then you have all these staffers, people don't realize you can't get rid of most of them.
That's right.
They're still there who still had the Obama kind of influence with them. So he just had and he didn't know, he'd never done it before. But he knows this. God had it where he missed 4 years.
Yeah,
and now he's ready.
Now knows, and his chief of staff, I think, is really important to this piece. Susie Wiles.
I love her.
She was great on the campaign. First woman. She was great on the campaign.
Right.
A lot of people don't, accuse Trump of being a sexist,
but
they don't understand that he's put women
in the
right
construction
place,
business.
In the construction business. Who heard of putting a woman built the first all-glass tower in New York, which was Trump Tower, revolutionized the city, was built by Donald Trump. But the woman who built
behind it, yes,
it was a woman.
Do you ever want to sit in that seat that Sid's sitting in?
I don't know. I get that question a lot. Maybe one day we'll see. But I really enjoy helping the mayor out and the things that he's wanting to get done. We'll see, but I'm very happy with what I'm doing now, and if I ever become unhappy, I'll just leave.
Right, do something else. Do you want to? You major in political science. You plan on becoming an attorney, then, correct?
No. I don't think I don't ever want to practice law.
Oh, okay.
So I let them hire people to do that.
Well, it's been great talking to you, Mason. We're going to start closing it down. Is there anything else you'd like to say to me or to the audience out there about what's going on?
No, I'd just like to thank you for having me on your show, and I'd like to thank the audience for being engaged and supporting you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
We all just need to try. I'll try to leave a path of goodness for others to follow. And saying that, this is my COVID book that I'm going to give to the mayor.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
And I've got to get him on, too.
Yes.
And I've got, this has, I write motivational quotes. That has 120 in it.
Wow. Thank you.
And I have one for you, too. It's a pocket that you can carry with you. It's a pocket edition of that for you.
When we're doing this work, we constantly need motivation.
We really do, and inspiration. In fact, I go to Southern Lab Thursday. They asked me to come speak to the youth there on inspiration. Hopefully my voice is better that day. Thanks, Mason.
Thank you.
Great to really, we just met. And we just liked each other, and both were trying to get things done, like everybody, trying to get things done to help this be a better place.
That's right.
Talk to you later, Mason. I'll be seeing you.